We have 5 weird, not so weird tips to improve your tournament reports. So I'm Blair. I judge here at Black Diamond. As I mentioned, I've been playing Magic since Urza's Saga. And I am here to talk about tournament reports. Just quick show of hands, how many people here have written a tournament report before? How many people here have read a tournament report? How many people here have no idea what a tournament report is? Cool. So the basic idea behind tournament reports is that they're some sort of a recap of what happened at a tournament. It's kind of all there in the name. You're going over what happened at an event that you judged at in whatever capacity that was. You may have been a head judge, you may have been a floor judge, you may have been the scorekeeper, whatever. You were at an event, and now you are going to report on that experience to other people. So we've already talked about this before, but the reason we care is because one of the requirements for being a level 2, it's a recommended item on the list, is writing a tournament report from head judging a competitive event. And one of the reasons why that's a good thing is that writing something about the event that you have judged will help you reflect. It will help you sort of pull together the information that you gathered over the course of judging, because judging is a learning experience. So a quick bit of background. The reason why I'm standing up here is because I am the Bay Area correspondent for GeekWire. We're a Seattle-based technology blog. I spend my days writing about Apple and Google and Microsoft. And that's roughly immaterial, but the reason why I like talking about this is because journalism, like writing a tournament report, is all about effectively communicating ideas in written form. And so when you set out to write a tournament report, nobody sets out to write a bad tournament report that people want to throw in the fire. Everybody wants to write a classic. They want to write something that's going to, pique people's attention from, whether that's higher level judges or people who you might find interesting. And so I've got 5 tips for how to make your tournament report better and how to avoid falling into some common pitfalls. And so the first one is you want to craft a story. One of the things that's really easy to do with tournament reports, or really anything, is to create this sort of plodding, blow-by-blow account of an event. Something where it says, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And if that sounds at all familiar to you, it's probably because you've been spending time around young kids. That's the way that they tell stories, right? They chain together a bunch of stuff. Batman was here, and then Spider-Man came along, and then Wonder Woman showed up. And that's great for them, but we want our tournament reports to make more sense than an issue of Axe Cop. And so what you want to do is you want to create a story. You want to give people a path, a journey that they're going to follow as they follow your writing. And so they're not necessarily going to, stop everywhere. They're going to miss out on some stuff. You're going to have to leave out some things that were interesting to you, that you found important, that you found valuable, just in the interest of creating a streamlined, easy-to-read story. But it's going to make your report better. And so, as a sort of corollary to this, and this has already been mentioned, but you want to take notes over the course of an event. Judging is hard. It is time-consuming. It is energy-consuming. You are going to be really, really tired after you are done judging a big event, and you are going to forget things that happened to you. So always, always, always take notes. I carry this with me basically wherever I go. It has some lovely field notes, notebooks in it. I write everything in these notebooks. I would be lost without them. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can find something else. I know lots of people have note-taking apps on their smartphones. I am one of those people. You can do whatever works for you, whether that's your smartphone, a pile of index cards, your forearm. I don't necessarily recommend that, but it's doable. Just take notes so that you have something to refer back to when you're actually sitting down and writing your report. And so tip number 2, find your angle. There are a lot of tournament reports out there, a lot of tournament reports out there, and there are going to be more and more and more of them coming into existence as more people move to certify to L2, and as more people get in the habit of writing tournament reports about what they've been doing. And so one of the things that I think people can import from journalism is what people in my business call an angle. And it's a really technical term, but it's basically, this is the lens through which you come to understand the events that happened to you. And so there are a lot of different ways to go about that. One potential angle, here's everything that went wrong last weekend. Or, here's what it's like to be a scorekeeper at a big event. Or, here's how to run deck checks at a GP. Here's what I learned from being in the trenches and what I picked up and tips that you can share with others. One of the most important things, one of the ways you can find the best angles are things that only you can bring to bear. All of us are unique. It's one of the things that makes us awesome and one of the things that helps us be better judges and how we can help other people be better judges. And so you don't necessarily have to really rack your brain and think, oh my God, how can I come up with the one unique thing? But, each of us has a different perspective. And so the more you can bring that to bear, the more special your tournament report is, and the more useful it's going to be for other people. Now, to sort of switch gears a little bit, tip number 3 is keep it concise, but not sparse. A lot of what I've talked about in the first 2 points has been all about streamlining. You want to make sure that you've got a nice aerodynamic tournament report that isn't super bloated with a bunch of stuff hanging off. But at the same time, you want to be really careful that you don't leave too much out. This is really, really dark, but what that actually is it's a car with no frame and no body. It is literally just the drivetrain and a steering wheel. And you don't want your report to be that car. And this is actually something I struggle with as a writer a lot. This is a huge problem that I have because I jump through 2 to 3 logical conclusions and then I start writing because I've been thinking about something for a while. So, case in point, here's a nice statement. I'm glad that people are caring for an abandoned sea otter pup. I don't know if any of you have seen this video that's been circling around the internet. There's an aquarium that just got an abandoned sea otter pup. And this statement actually has a whole lot of thought and a whole lot of meaning behind it. But you wouldn't know it. Sea otters are a threatened species. They're actually really important when it comes to the ocean ecosystem. And they're really cute. But that statement doesn't encompass any of those 3 things that I just mentioned. And so you want to make sure that you communicate all of the things, you communicate enough so that people have the right context. One of the hard things about being a writer is that you have to walk the razor's edge between giving too much information and not giving enough information. And so one of the things that you can do to make a better tournament report is you can think about that. You can pass it off to somebody else, especially somebody who wasn't working with you on an event. And you can say, here's my tournament report. What do you think? Does it make sense to you? And they will be able to give you some feedback and help you make it better. Now we get to tip number 4. You want to make sure that your sources are in the loop. As a journalist, I have a lot of rules about what I can and can't write when people talk to me. You may have heard some of these terms before, going off the record, that sort of thing. The good news is, you guys, when you're writing a tournament report, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about all of the complicated stuff that I have to manage. But having a little bit of that mindset is going to be helpful because people can and do share personal stories with you over the course of an event. Or if they're, if the two of you are talking, sometimes they let you in on a little tidbit that you think, oh my God, this would be great if I could just write it up in my tournament report. And that's okay. That's actually a really good thing because odds are you learned something from them. And if you want to share that with the rest of the world, that's great. Just have a conversation with them. Be open with them about, letting them know that you want to include that in your story. And it's really as simple as saying, hey, can I mention what you said in my tournament report? It's not that hard. But it opens you up to them saying no. And if they say no, do respect that because it's entirely possible that they've shared with you something that they don't want to have shared with the entire internet or with a group of people outside of just a handful of people. I'm very open in person-to-person situations about part of the reason why I was a judge, why I decided to certify was because of some bad experiences that I had with the community that I was a part of. Anywhere near here, but it was, that was part of what spurred me to become a judge. And I can go into very explicit detail about that I won't here. And so I'm fine with sharing that with another person. If that becomes, public, especially if names become public or times become public, that affects the relationship that I have with other people. And so what you can do as a writer is just check in with me. Because if somebody said, hey, I want to talk to you, I want to mention what you said online, I might say, maybe not. And there's some wiggle room there. If somebody says, no, I don't want you to mention me by name, you can say, well, okay, is it okay if I mention, if I remove some of these, defining details? Is it okay if I anonymize some of this? And if they still say no, then at that point, as far as I'm concerned, 2 strikes and you're out. And I think it's very important that you respect people's privacy in that way. But asking them and saying, hey, I want to make sure that this is okay with you. And then getting to a point where it's okay with them and you've got something awesome to share. That's the best outcome you can have. The last thing you want is for your tournament report to go up, and then 2 hours later, you get this phone call from somebody who says, dude, what was that? I shared that with you in confidence. I didn't want that shared with the entire world. And then you've got a big problem. So that's tip number 4. And tip number 5, finally, you want to give your audience something to take home. You've done a lot of work learning for yourself, and now you can share that with other people. You can actually go out and say, here, this is what I learned. This is what I got out of this event. This is how I can, help make things better. Because the last thing that you want to do is if you have come up with an amazing story, if you've gotten a killer unique angle, if you've managed to walk the razor's edge in between too much information and not enough information, the last thing you want to do is leave your audience going, well, okay, but what was the point of all that? You want to analyze your experience and give people some takeaways, some real ideas about how they can go out and constructively improve their judging and what they're doing. Stuff like, here's how to avoid doing what I did. Here's what would have made me less anxious about issuing my first DQ. Stuff like that is going to help other people become better. You went through this experience that has really improved you. And so you've learned a lot. It's time for you to get out there and teach. So with that, any questions? Justin.
I don't have a specific question, but more I wanted to drive more home the points of being concise and analyzing your own tournament reports in the actual tournament report. A lot of these things, you post them on the Judge Apps forums, and there are a lot of higher level judges that read it, specifically to prod you and ask questions to get in your head about the situation that they want to know why you made the rulings that you did. So, for example, several tournament reports that I read had responses from judges saying, hey, you said that this, this, and this happened. How come you made that choice? And the judge who put up the report will say, well, no, actually what happened was these things, I just didn't write it very well. And getting rid of a lot of those posts and instead going to the poster and said, you did these things as you said, why? And then you go, oh, well, this is the reason. It helps everybody learn a lot easier while trimming a lot of the fat out. And on that with the analysis as well, I learned a lot from reading other people's tournament reports because they say, this situation came up and this happened. I've had this happen in the past, but the reason why I did it this way are for these reasons. And then in my head, I don't have to then ask them and say, hey, why did you do it this way? So it's really, really important to do this.
Is there any particular form or structure that a tournament report should be in? Or is that completely up to the writer? Should it be chronologically? Should it be like what happened before the tournament? Round 1, round 2, round 3?
It should make sense. That is my that's the structure. I mean, if things are not in exact chronological order, that's okay, especially if they make more sense that way. At the same time, there's a time and a place for really weird time-bendy writing when you don't know what time something is and what was going on and what precipitated it and all of that, and that can be left to William Faulkner. And not in your tournament report, because this is about, sort of delivering meaning and not necessarily that sort of creativity.
So what you're saying is you should focus on the meaning of your tournament report, what message you're trying to convey, and then let the form evolve from that?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay.
Have you written some reports already?
I actually haven't.
Qualifications.
This is as anybody who has written like analytical essays or anything will probably recognize a lot of this stuff from.
No, I was just wondering, okay, I could look up and say, oh, that's a
No, unfortunately, I don't have anything to point you to.
Oh, do you recommend any high-level judges who have written excellent tournament reports as examples?
I am a consistent reader of Why So Grumpy, if I remember correctly. That is some great stuff, and I think that's some of the best tournament report writing. There's also an article that recently went up on one of the judge blogs that covers actually a lot of this same stuff. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. I don't have a lot of just sort of like great examples that I could say, here's the platonic ideal of a tournament report.
Check out Battlefield Forge.
Mm-hmm.
Also recently, I believe there was a judge, not necessarily specifically that, but there was a judge blog, Patrick Orford, posted something about tournament reports themselves, like how like a good, there's, the judge blogs are just amazing, and you should all read them all the time. But there was one posted fairly recently that actually talked about
I'm taking control.